welcome to the Boogie Mama Riffs and Reviews. Today we're going to be doing two albums at once. Well, actually it's one album released at two different times in two different countries, called AC/DC Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. Now, the first version of this was released in Australia in 1976. It was also released in Europe and New Zealand as well. And when it came out, I wish I had a big LP to show you. I was looking at one of the records today. When it came out, that is the cover. You would have seen it on the introduction to this review. That was the original cover. It's the back front cover. That was the original cover of Australian Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And the American version, which is this different cover, wasn't released until 1981, which is amazing. There's a 5-year difference, and it was actually released after Bon Scott sadly died, and then they released Back in Black, which was a huge hit, one of the biggest selling records of all time. And then so the record company Atlantic decided to release Dirty Deeds a year after Back in Black. And Dirty Deeds was actually the third AC/DC album, but it was the first AC/DC album that was entirely recorded with the same lineup. So we had High Voltage and TNT, and they were both recorded with different drummers, Tony Correnti, and different bass players. I think even George Young played some bass on some of those. So there was a few, you could say, session musicians, but well known to the band session musicians on the first two albums. So the third album was entirely AC/DC, the main core Bon Scott group that we know, with Phil Rudd, Mark Evans, Angus and Malcolm Young, and of course Bon Scott. Now, this album wasn't actually going to be released at first in 1976 by Atlantic Records. For some reason, they weren't happy with the production, or believe it or not, Bon's vocals on them. So that's why Atlantic Records decided to hold off on Dirty Deeds in 1976. And when they did re-release it, I'll read out the tracks super soon. When they did re-release it, they dropped a couple of tracks off the American album. One of them was Rock in Peace, and the other one is Jailbreak. So for some reason, I'm not sure why they would think there's something wrong with the vocals on those two particular albums, but anyway. In 1981, after Back in Black was recorded and they released the American version of Dirty Deeds, the band was actually sued for $250,000. I'm not sure if that's today's money or back then, but claiming their phone number was in the song Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. The bit where Bon Scott says 362436A. I better not. So don't sue me. I hope that's not your phone number still. I'm only joking. But apparently, yeah, that was actually someone's phone number that they said on the song. It's crazy. What things that happen when bands get rich, they try and sue people for ridiculous things. So I just want to go through super quick now on the different tracks. So what we're going to do, I'm just going to do a track by track comparison with the American Dirty Deeds versus the Australian Dirty Deeds. So I'm just going to go do a track by track on that. As I said before, there was two songs that were dropped off that album, and there's 9 tracks on both the USA and the Australian ones. The first track is Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap versus Dirty Deeds on the Australian album. So I guess we'll just say Dirty Deeds is the best one to let us do. The second song on the USA version is Love at First Feel. That's maybe one of my favourite songs on this album, to be honest, and that goes against track number 2, Ain't No Fun Waiting Round to Be a Millionaire, on the Australian version. So out of those two, I think I'm going to give it to Love at First Feel. And the third song is Big Balls in the American version, and in the Australian version, the third track is There's Gonna Be Some Rocking. So I think personally, out of those two, I'm going to pick There's Gonna Be Some Rocking. Fourth track, Rocker versus Problem Child. I'm going to have to go Rocker, because there's putting Rocker in there, in my opinion, whoever's thought of it is genius. I love how you can actually hear the end of Big Balls, how it almost goes into the next track in the Australian version. It cuts out, but it really just fits in so well. It fits like a glove, or what do you want to say. And the next one is, so I'm going to give that one to, out of Rocker and Problem Child, I'm going to say Rocker. Now again, fifth song in the American version is Problem Child versus Squealer. I'm going to give it to, I might have to ask my dog this one. Which one do you reckon? Problem Child or Squealer? Squealer? Okay. Only joking. I don't talk to my dog. Sixth song, there's going to be some rocking versus Big Balls. We did that one before. So I'm going to choose, there's going to be some rocking again. Seventh song, Ain't No Fun Waiting Round to Be a Millionaire versus Rock in Peace. I'm going to go with Rock and Peace. I think, yeah, it's a cool track. And the eighth song is Ride On versus, on the Australian one, Ride On, so we'll give it to Ride On. And the last track on the American album is Squealer versus Jailbreak. On the Australian one, I'm going to give that to Jailbreak. So we'll see what we've got here. The USA one, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 songs. And the Australian one's got 1, 2, 3, 4 songs. Well, anyway. One of the things I noticed when I first bought Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap when I was in high school, and I remember my mate Scott said he wanted to get the tattoo of a parrot like Bon Scott on his forearm. But one of the things I did notice about that album is there seems to be a lot, I know this is musical talk, but this is a musical channel, but there's a lot of blues shuffles in the key of D, which basically means that that's a blues shuffle in the key of D. So there's a lot of songs, I'm not bagging it out, I would never bag Akadaka on my own review, but that's the only thing I could probably see as some sort of lower point on the album, and it's possibly why Atlantic may have held off on that record. So anyway, out of those two, sorry, my dog's just here. Hey dog. So out of those two, out of the American Dirty Deeds versus Australian Dirty Deeds, I'm going to give it to the American Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap album. That's my favourite one, just a mix of the songs. It might not have Jailbreak, it might not have Rock in Peace, but I just like that Love at First Feel song and how Rocker fits in there, and I just think it's a really strong album. And so we thank you for joining us on Boogie Mama Riffs and Reviews. We'll see you next time. I'm going to bring you something awesome again. Click like if you like this video, and I'm going to do more track by, or not track by track, but album against album reviews. Thank you, see you next time.